Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 8 of On the Hook. Today, we're going to be talking about the rise of AI transforming the future of marketing. AI has been in the news of late. You know, you can't check out any thread on the internet without hearing people talking about pros and cons. Today, we'll be discussing it with Craig Key, founder of Robot of Business. And he's going to help us understand the future of AI, how it's going to help us with marketing and solve a lot of the tedium and problems we have today, and how it can also benefit small businesses. So welcome, Craig. Happy you're here.
Rick. Thanks for having me.
I mean, no problem. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, and then tell us a little bit about Rob.
Yeah. So I'm a marketer by trade. My career has been in digital marketing. Many years on the agency side. I was sort of working in SEO, search engine marketing, when social was quite new. And so I just sort of raised my hand and said, like, I tweet, this is like 2008 and 9, and I use social media, I blog, perhaps we could offer this to our clients. And so I got to sort of grow quite quickly just by being the default. I wasn't necessarily good. I was just the only social media person kind of focused on that at the agency for years. And that was really fortunate because I got to sort of build a discipline from scratch around content and social strategy and the paid side of social, right? So the ads and kind of the commerce side of things. And that led me to eventually leave the agency life and go lead marketing for a restaurant delivery service called Bite Squad, which was based here in Minneapolis, which is where I'm from. So I was the CMO of Bite Squad for 2 years. And then that company was acquired by a public company called Waiter Holdings. They're now called ASAP Delivery. And I found myself actually leading marketing for that company, which I never thought was in the cards for me. But that was a really amazing and eye-opening, experience. And after about a year of that, and my family had grown in the meantime, I've got 5 boys. They're all between the ages of 5 and 11. So family life was quite full. I decided to sort of leave corporate life and go into consulting and more fractional CMO, which is what I've been doing since. And so really marketing is that is what I would say I'm good at. What was strange this year, as ChatGPT rolled out, publicly last, I think November. And I was in a bit of a transition myself, trying to actually change up some of the work that I was doing. And I wanted to put up a new website for myself. So I'm sort of a small business in need of a new website. I'm a it's the classic, what is it? The cobbler's children have no shoes. I'm a marketer without any marketing assets about myself or my business. And I just decided to ask ChatGPT to interview me. I saw a prompt somewhere where somebody said, hey, give it a job, give it a role. And so I asked it to be an investigative journalist to interview me. I copied and pasted my resume. And then I probably had a back and forth conversation for about 20 minutes. And then it kicked out, in my opinion, much better copy than I could have done or than I would have done if I was writing about myself or my own business. And that really gave me this idea that, like, wow, there is that there's that stage between what I will call, I have a good idea. It could be a business or it should be a business, or maybe it is a small business. And I'm ready to hire full-on marketing team, expert agency, et cetera. And that's great. By the way, that's where I make my money. That's where my career has been made, is in the experts. Mm-hmm. But there's such a gap between those two places. That having the experience of using AI to sort of help me get over the sort of off the blank page for my own site, gave a friend of mine and I an idea to say, what if we just built that for everybody? So we launched robotofbusiness.com just a couple months later, which is it's an AI version of getting you off the blank page and getting a landing page or a simple website made in about 10 minutes.
in 10 minutes. So let's back up one small step. I think
Yeah.
when we start talking about AI, people kind of have one of two impressions. The Chat GPT, right? Kind of this
Yep.
thing's really cool. It's like the ultimate Google. I have my own Jarvis, right? And then like HAL 9000. It's going to wipe us all out and we're all doomed, right? I think there's a competing mindset in the Hollywood version of AI and the reality of AI. So at this point in time, what is AI and what is it capable of? Obviously, the getting off the blank page in the Chat GPT that we all know, and what really can't it do for us?
Yeah. Okay. Good question. So yeah, it's not a person and it's not even person like, right? It doesn't have relationships. It certainly can give you the feeling of a relationship, but the best way. So I explained this to my parents the other day, and I said, when you're typing, and actually I'm going to use the term Gen AI, generative AI. So artificial intelligence, that's such a broad term, and it's been around for, I mean, HAL 9000 was artificial intelligence. What I think really popped this year, what changed from 2022 to 2023 is this idea of generative AI. So AI that is able to generate content seemingly from scratch or from a prompt, a simple prompt. Um, and then what really caught this on fire is someone gave it a chat interface. So actually, even Gen AI, like GPT, GPT-3, now we're on GPT-4. That's actually a few years old, and there's been even versions of it for a long time. But the only way to interact with it was through an API, or so you had to be a developer, you had to have technical skills, you had to call this API with your credentials and your API stuff that I don't do that. You don't do that.
Right.
That's what developers do. What was lightning in a bottle was the folks at OpenAI said, what if we just make this a little chat interface, just like you're chatting with a friend? And all of a sudden, the same technology that had kind of been, I don't want to say on the shelf, but it's been around for a year or two, it exploded because regular people can use it. Like we can just like, hey, what's a good recipe for lasagna? And all of a sudden you're talking to a chef who could give you great ideas for lasagna. Okay, so here's what I explained to my parents. When you're texting on your iPhone and it wants to suggest the next word, like you're starting to text and then it goes, oh, right above your keyboard, there's like, oh, Is that the word you want next? Is that the word? That's what this is. Like, really, if you boil it all down, your iPhone knows that when people are sending texts, this is often the next word, and it's often right? This is often the next word, or this is the completion of the word that you're typing, that you started to type, right? That is exactly what's going on with ChatGPT at a larger scale. So it's not just doing one word at a time, or what's the next word. It's doing that times tens or hundreds or even sometimes thousands of words, but it has this it's learned from, I don't know, petabytes. I don't even know what the right way to quantify the data. It's learned from the internet, basically.
Yeah, I think the appropriate phrase is a lot.
A lot.
A lot of data goes into teaching.
Training.
For training is probably a better word than teaching, right? Teaching, I think, maybe applies a little bit more advanced capability than training. Training is definitely the better word.
Yeah, so it's been, the models have been trained on all of this data, and it goes, oh, this person asked me for this. Here's the prompt, right? What's a good recipe for lasagna? And when I've been trained on all of these other conversations and Reddit threads and Wikipedia and who knows, my blog, your blog, the New York Times, and they're about to sue OpenAI. All of this content, this tends to be what happens after someone says, what's a good lasagna recipe? And then it kicks it out. So that's, in its basic sense, that is what ChatGPT is doing. And it's both wonderful and also it causes a lot of problems. So that it's an amazing technology with lots of benefits and lots of drawbacks.
Certainly. Yeah. I mean, I think we've all seen the cases where, you know, a It's done a great job of fixing that blank page problem for people, but also it's not omniscient. It doesn't know everything, so sometimes it gets some of its facts wrong, and that's where there is still a need for people to go in and say, that's placed well, it sounds good, but it's factually inaccurate, so let me go and fix that, right? Which I think is for me and probably a lot of listeners a nice thing to know, that it's not perfect all the time, that it has flaws, and there's still a reason for human editors to go in there and go, actually, let's do this. So from a marketing standpoint, how does that help? I've seen people write their resumes with it. You were talking about the job description thing. From a marketing standpoint, you said your background's in SEO. How is AI kind of comparable? I mean, with SEO, you're kind of working an algorithm, right? You're trying to almost counter program an algorithm so that it does what you want it to. Is AI kind of like the next step of that?
It could be. It's certainly possible. So I'll back up and say that. So I tend to be a technology optimist. Okay, so and you have to understand that every technology has both costs and benefits. But I tend to believe, for the most part, these new technologies, they're going to do good. There's also going to be consequences, right? Negative consequences. But I'd much rather be understanding and leveraging these things ahead of them, as opposed to sort of like I don't know, putting on my tinfoil hat and trying to pretend that they're not going to happen, right? I actually, quite arrogantly, about 10 years ago, I was saying, oh, truck drivers, if you're a truck driver, you better get some new skills, because the robots are coming for your job. With AI, Elon Musk and Tesla and all these automated, autonomous driving, I thought that industry is going to get totally disrupted. I never thought my job would get taken by robots. I never, like 10 years ago, I could see it so clearly in this one area, this like physical, mechanical. Oh, the robots can do a great job of moving things through space and time on a road, sure. Right? Less accidents than humans cause on the road and all this stuff. I just never thought that. So that's a labor-based job. I didn't think thinking-based jobs, lawyers, marketers, show hosts, right?
Like, hey, now you said you were an optimist, and you're taking all of our jobs in like 30 seconds. So
I didn't see this coming. However, I think Scott Galloway has the best quote, and he might be quoting something else, but it's, you will not be replaced by AI. You will be replaced by someone who knows how to use AI. And that's what I think. I think a marketer in 2023 has to be, you have to have the tools to put out the workload that's capable. And in the same way that going from a world without, machinery and automation and CNC machines in manufacturing to a world with, means that one person is expected to go from X output to 10X output in widgets or whatever you're manufacturing. I think that's what's going to happen with AI and with marketing. I would say the best uses for AI are in thinking about the things about a job that are really, they require a lot of either research and synthesis, or just a huge quantity of output. So for example, if I was working in the agency days and I've got a new client, let's say they work in dog food, and I don't know anything about dog food. The process typically would be, we get this, RFP or an assignment from a new client or prospective client. It's going to get handed to a strategist who's going to do lots and lots of research about the industry. What size is it? Who are the big players? What other brands are, sort of winning in this space? Maybe interview some people, ask them, what are their motivations for dog food? Why do they buy the dog food? Right? So someone's going to spend a few days to a couple weeks going deep to become an expert in, this brand or this marketing. And then they're going to bring it to a creative kickoff meeting with the rest of us and they're going to synthesize all of that stuff that they learned into a creative brief that goes, here's what you need to know. These are the drivers. This is the most important message. This is the audience, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that type of process, now, again, it still needs critical thinking and strategy, and you have to decide who do we really want to go after, and why do we want to, target a certain theme or aspect. But I think the robots can do such a better job on average. This is important. On average, the robots
That's
can do
fair.
a better job in much less time, right? Than a whole team of strategists would have to do in weeks or weeks. Now, are there outliers who will always outperform the robots? Of course there are, of course. But the question is, would we rather be able to, have productivity to get going on creative ideas and marketing and ideation after 2 hours or 2 weeks? Or are we okay with, let's say, A- brief in 2 hours? Honestly, sometimes it's 2 minutes if you get yourself into a system where you've done this before, or an A+ in 2 weeks, right? And so, depending on the situation, some people might choose the latter. But I think for most cases, getting an A- output of synthesizing the category, the players, everything we need to know to get to a creative kickoff, I think is wonderful. Now, is it going to write the next amazing, Cannes Lion Award winning ad headline? I don't know, and I don't think that just putting the words on the page, which it's great at, that's not enough to build a marketing campaign or a brand or a strategy, right? What I would say is, if you've got a brilliant creative director, copywriter, art director, and again, the process used to be, I'm gonna quietly sit and I'm gonna write. I'm gonna get to 100 headlines. It's gonna take me 2 days. I'm gonna get 100 headlines, and then I'm gonna cross out 90 of them, and I'm gonna bring 10 to this review meeting, and then we're gonna cross out 5 of those, and then we're really gonna work with these 5, right? That's kind of what a lot of ideation works like. Okay, well, get 10 headlines from the robot. Do it again. Do it again. Right? You could get to your 100 headlines, and maybe none of them are the A+ that you're looking for. But from an inspiration standpoint, that's what I think it can be so good at. It can the volume of output, and then the sort of general knowledge where you don't have to do a ton of research to get yourself in the right, to get yourself the Cliff's Notes of what you need to know.
Sure. Yep.
I think that's what AI is really strong at.
It sounds like, and it's something I've heard a lot of people say within, the marketing industry and the creative industry is, perfection is the enemy of good enough.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it sounds like this is going to be the good enough, which you then have the option of refining if you want it to be a little better than good enough. Have it be
I think
great
so.
or whatnot.
I would also argue, I'll give you a different metaphor. So who should be worried? If you're a great creative director and your job has been, harnessing great ideas, finding great, copy, art, putting that into a great strategy and great campaign, I don't think that you should be worried. If your job is proofreading, okay, so if your job is mechanically, maybe that's crass, but your job is to assemble words in grammatically correct order and make sure that they're all spelled correctly, right? That's a job I think is I might be worried if I'm that job. So if my value add is that I can correctly assemble words on a page from the language that I speak, I think AI is going to be really good at that. Even translations, AI is going to be really good at that. But if my job is, I sort of weave together the copy with the right visuals, the right look and feel, the casting, production, shooting, go-to-market strategy, media strategy, social content, right? Like all of that. Well, that person, they're not getting replaced. They just got a new set of tools, maybe not so different than moving from the days of typewriter and whiteout to the days of word processor, right? You can do a lot more now that you can just delete and, by the way, half the people listening to this have no idea what I'm talking with. They neither know what a
Typewriters and
typewriter
whiteout
or a word processor is.
Sure. No, 100%.
But yeah, moving off of the physical limitations of how long would it take you to write something, pull it up, white out the parts that you want to change, go back and type over it, to I can write, copy, paste, delete, change. That's, I think, what we have now is we have I'll call it, for ChatGPT specifically, I have a copywriting tool that makes me much faster at producing and ideating than I used to be. So, writers didn't go extinct when the typewriter evolved to the word processor. Film editors didn't go extinct, although they had to adapt and get new skill sets. But when we went from literally cutting, splicing, taping film strips together to, Avid and, Premiere and all these, digital.
The art of that is still intact. So having that artistic vision and ability hasn't changed. It's just you need a different skill set to execute on it.
Right. And you've got this. So, it used to take you, I have no idea I was a media major, so I did this much with film. I don't know what it used to take to do an actual dissolve of actual film, but I suspect it was a laborious endeavor. And now it's like, oh, move the dissolve to there. Oh, let's try the dissolve there. Oh, let's try fade to black there. Like you can just move things around so much easier. And I think that's what we have with these AI tools is it's a much faster way to produce.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, the film and the writing components were great examples. Yeah. In what I'm sure would take a half hour, and then your director says, nope, not what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And you have to go back and do it again. Something like Final Cut or, Adobe Premiere, 5 seconds like that. Nope. How about this? How about this? How about, and in the same 30 minutes, you can resolve an entire day's worth of work and get exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah.
So it's not about replacing the work. It's replacing the method of the work and accelerating it exponentially.
And again, it's what is your value add, right? What is if your value add is a mechanical one, like you might have some things to be worried about. But if your value add is about, and marketing is always art and science, right? It is never just, there was this amazing tagline, lemon, right? And then this picture of a Volkswagen, and then everything else was just, it was perfect because they had that one word, lemon, right? That's a throwback to a very classic advertising campaign for Volkswagen called Lemon. Again, for the folks who didn't know what a typewriter was, you can look that one up. It's always about, how you pull together the whole campaign, why you're going after the audience you're going after. What is it about your brand that is communicating to that person or audience that is really meaningful to them? And the robot this year, and I would even say in the next 5 years, is not going to figure those things out on their own. But what they can do is, if they're set up correctly, and if you learn to prompt them for insights, actions, output, copy is certainly part of it. But you learn to prompt them in the right way, your output becomes just much, much greater and much faster.
It reminds me, I once upon a time worked for a promotional products company, and the difference between the old process of setting something up to be embroidered to do, this kind of work, where you do stitching on an article of clothing, was a very manual, labor intensive. It took an art team. It took a puncher is what it was called.
Yep.
And it took, a couple of days to get to a point where you could even do a test run. And that morphed into, you now have a digitizer who's running this piece of software that you're scanning the artwork in. It's kind of loosely mapping it. The digitizer goes back in, fixes it in 20 minutes. And within the hour, you're now able. So the puncher didn't lose a job. They gained a skill set.
Right.
To adapt into the future.
And that's what will happen. So to be clear, some people will lose their jobs.
Sure.
Some people will. And it's the person who doesn't have the mentality that you just said. If the puncher sees digitization or automation or CNC or what I don't even know what words to use, the robotification of that task. If the person who used to do this mechanical, very precise punching thing sees the robotization of their job as their competition, then they're going to get stuck, or they're going to be in this tiny niche, artisanally punched corporate swag, right? or this
artisanally punched corporate swag.
I'm
going to start a business now, Craig.
Yeah, there you go. It's the opposite of robotabusiness.com. That's fine. We'll swap leads with each other.
There we go.
But if they see it like you described it, I have a new tool now. I have a new tool set. I can do more with less. Then they're either going to be able to smoke their competition because they can do so much more for less money, or they can do it for the same money but so much faster, or their profit goes up because they don't, they have fewer labor hours needed that they're paying for to get to the same output. So again, we are all looking at this new tool, and I'm of the opinion we should be playing with it. We should be learning about it. I mean, again, I didn't think it was coming from marketing. I think it's coming for most lawyers, maybe except for standing in the courtroom. But if your job is in legal briefs and in contract law and like the minutia of text on a page and what that means and how that works for the law,
it sounds like you're saying paralegals should be nervous.
Well, if I'm a lawyer or if I'm working in that field in paralegal, I would be studying everything about AI and how it might help us right now. Because if you don't, someone will. And to charge it's probably not going to change what lawyers charge for their time, but it's probably going to change the expectation of how much time it should take to do a certain task. How much time should a contract take with this, this level of needs or this research or this back and forth with the client? Sure. A lot of that can probably be, moved over to the robotic side of the business, even the back and forth. We're pretty proud of it at robotabusiness.com. You're having a quick conversation, I think 5-10 minutes conversation with a robot about your business. And then it goes back behind the scenes, and it kicks out a website for you. So if you think about what do I need to feed into this prompt or into this this AI to get the output I'm looking for, what would be the expected type of output that I can give it as an example? And then what questions do I need to ask my subject, client, customer, whatever, about them or their business so that I get this right? You start to think less about, focus groups and, one-on-one interviews and things like that. And you start to think about, okay, how do I turn this into a standardized input form that's going to collect data in this way and kick it back in this way?
Right. It sounds like it's as I'm listening to it, it's interesting. And let's actually talk about Robot Business for a little bit. So correct me if I'm wrong at any point. Robot Business helps you generate a website for your business, correct?
That's right. Yep.
And I've looked at it. It seems pretty straightforward. But the way you just described it, what I heard was less about me as a business owner who doesn't really know how to build a website or where to start, going and asking, for Rob to build me a website. It sounded like you were actually talking about kind of a freelance web designer who knows using Rob to do their job 10 times faster.
Yeah, that's well said. So to be clear, you could go to ChatGPT, there's a free version of it. And there's now others. There's Google Bard and Facebook has Llama. And so there are lots of these free or cheap generative AI tools. And you could say, write me a website. My name is Craig Key. I'm a marketing consultant. I need a website. And it will write a website. It'll write copy. It will probably even give you maybe kind of some headline, paragraph structure. It might even think to give you like an about page and a contact us page. And so if you ask ChatGPT to write you a website 10 different times about the same thing, you'll get 10 websites, copy words. And I would say, if I had to guess, 5 or 6 of them would pass. Like this is decent website copy here. So maybe 50-60%, decent rate. It'd be like maybe a B- if you're used to good copy. Well, what I think is, I've never thought that my skills as a marketer are because I know how to write words. I do know how to write words, sort of. Sometimes I even talk good words. Okay, just cut out my corny jokes, would you? But what I know about sort of marketing is, number one, the customer has to see themselves and what they want in the messaging that's being given to you. The customer has to see themselves as sort of getting to their goal or their dream or their wishes because of your brand. The customer doesn't really want to know that much about you. They want to know more about, how am I going to do better because of you or because I bought from you? And then there's some other things just about how to lay out, a website that's kind of walking you down the funnel, getting some social proof from others, getting some validation or reasons to believe that I think are important to how a good website should perform and how it should sell, right? So that's what you don't get if you just ask ChatGPT to write your website. It's just going to kick out some words. They will be good words. They will probably be even relevant about your business. They probably won't do a great job of positioning your business or your brand in a way that customer goes, oh, I need this. I want this, right? And that's what a great copywriter does, or a e-commerce or kind of conversion rate optimization expert. They know that. So, but if I go to you, small business owner, and you said this well, and I say, hey, what are your reasons to believe? Hey, what's your unique value proposition? Hey, if I run, Craig's hardware store down the street, I don't know my unique value. We're good hardware store. We take care of our customers. What else do you want to know? So if you get too deep into the marketing speak with someone who's starting a business, running a business as a small business, you just get stuck, right? So Robot of Business says, okay, what's your business called? Great. What kind of business is it? Okay, cool. Hey, what do you want people to do when you get to the site? What's the goal? Okay, great. Hey, what do you think makes you different from the businesses that are like you? Got it. And what kind of personality, or here's a few words. Do any of these words work for you as far as personality? Got it. And if you were to think about a celebrity, maybe like that has the tone and voice, that might personify what you imagine for your brand, who would you say? Right? So if I ask you those questions, there's a few others, but that's most of them. If I ask you those questions, as a marketer, I could go back and build out reasons to believe, sort of the customer's hero journey, unique value proposition, calls to action. I can do that. But if I were to ask you, a non-marketer or a small business owner, for those things, your head starts to spin. So that's where, and again, you could apply this to anything. I'm an expert in X. I have a process for gathering information that helps me do X. I'm now going to gather that information robotically, using a type form in my case, systematically, the same way every time. And then I'm gonna use my expertise to process that, and I'm gonna tell the AI, this is how I would get to a reason to believe. Here's an example reason to believe from this business with this answer to this question. Now go make a reason to believe for this new business, and this is how they answered this question.
I love that brand voice was snuck in there too. Because if
Yeah.
you said brand voice to the owner of Tom's Hardware, well, I don't know, what do I sound like, right? Would probably
Yeah.
be the answer. That's I like that it considers things like that. So now I've gone to Rob. I've got my website. My neighbor told me, his son makes websites. Here's my little hypothetical. And he said I have to be on WordPress. So I can just take that and put it on WordPress?
You could, yeah. So I use WordPress quite a bit in some of my work. The copy is yours to do with what you want. We actually have a partnership, an affiliate partnership with Webflow, which is WordPress, Squarespace, Webflow. They're Shopify. Those are probably the four biggest, CMSs that are out there right now. We really like Webflow, and they have a great API. And another day, I can go down a rabbit hole of two non-technical marketers were able to build an AI system partially using AI to help write code where we don't know how to write code, and then partially just using great no-code tools like Webflow and Zapier and a few others to build a system that will, Typeform is one, that will take an input from a customer on Typeform. It will kick it into our little engine, our little robot engine, and get to the AI and back again. And then it will kick it into a Webflow page, all with us not lifting a finger. And again, if you're a software engineer, that's like first day stuff.
Sure.
But we feel pretty excited about and proud about the fact that AI is opening up. If you have an idea, it does not have to be months or even weeks before you prototype that, bring it to market, and just see how it works. We did this in about a week for our first kind of alpha version, and we showed it to some people, and they were like, "That's really good." So we had that kind of instant feedback that like, "Oh, this is pretty useful," and we've improved upon it since that first version. But yeah, we used AI to build an AI app, and launched a software product that where we have no technical skills between the two of us.
That's equal parts impressive and a little bit scary.
And a little scary. Yeah.
A little bit. There's a little bit there.
I agree.
It's very cool, and then you're going to go to bed at night and lay awake going, what have I done? So I'm a customer. I come and Rob asked me all these questions and I answer them all, and a couple days later I come back and I have a cool website? Or is it I have a website?
10 minutes from this on average. If you start your survey, it's going to take you 3 to 7-ish minutes to fill out your survey. Mm-hmm. But on the high end, 7 minutes, you put a lot of thought into it. I think it's about 10 questions. We charge $10. So you're going to fill out the survey, pay $10, and then in 2 to 3 minutes, you're going to get an email from us and a link to a live web page that it won't have your logo, it won't have images. It'll be sort of a generic looking, great, black and white web page, but it'll have headlines, copy, placeholders for images, reasons to believe, calls to actions, contact form, and you can copy paste it onto your site if you like what's there and you already have a WordPress or Squarespace or something else. It's yours to do with what you want. Or if you want the exact layout, you want to use Webflow, or you haven't picked yet, you just sign up with us, get a Webflow account, and boom, you have a live web page, change out the images and put it on your domain if you want.
Nice. So again, it sounds like we're talking about not replacing web designers, but we're solving the blank page problem.
Totally solving yeah. I think, again, when you get past that first stage, a year or two later, or maybe 6 months later, you're going to go, hey, I think maybe we need more people to think about this. And when you're off and running and making money, it's probably, you should go hire an agency or a copywriter or a creative strategist. But I actually had somebody give me the feedback that there's been so many times when I wanted to go take meetings for an idea I have, but it's it doesn't seem official until I have a website. And that's where it was like, okay,
Right.
10 minutes, $10, we will get you an official website, right? And you go take those first meetings with a legitimate, hardworking, website. To me, that's the real value. Get you off the blank page, and then you'll edit it. Just like if you hired a copywriter for your business, you'd give them feedback. So you'll make changes or you'll make edits to what the robot gives you. But you don't have to think about the process it will take to find, interview, kick off, hire, kick off, give feedback, rounds and rounds of feedback. And then I have a website. You just go 10 minutes. And if you don't like it, do it again. In fact, we'll do it again for free if you don't like it. That's where we're trying to get people, is off that blank page in like not much more than a thought.
That is really impressive. And I think it's a very comforting use of AI to hear about, because it doesn't have that kind of ominous. I mean, again, you can go on the internet, you can go on, what is it, X now, and just all of these discussions about, the ethical problems, the very HAL 9000 eventuality that everyone's afraid of, right? And I feel like some of these nuances that you're bringing up are just lost in those discussions, because they almost feel a little bit like a panic. There are really valid questions. There are very, very valid ethical and other questions around AI that we absolutely have to solve. But I think you've made a really strong case where we don't have to be afraid of it, that this is a tool like any other. If used properly, it can be a great starting point. In the future, it may even get us further down the road than that, but it's not, it's not Skynet. It's not going to come and just make us irrelevant and then just take over.
Yeah, not yet, anyways.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
You're right.
I was going to sleep well tonight until you said that, Craig.
I'll give you, here's a closing thought for me. So there's I think it's a Greek myth about the wisdom of Thamus. I hope I'm saying that right. Thamus, wisdom of Thamus. And one of his subjects came to him and said, sire, he was the king. We have cured memory. We have the cure for memory. It's called writing. And they talked all about writing and how you can write things down. And now, we have cured memory. This is not a problem. It's a solved problem. And Thamus said, I don't think that you have cured memory. I think you've ruined it. And his point was, if we go from a world where we don't have the written word to the world where we have the written word, we go from a world where we had to rely on memory, right, as our primary means of sort of accessing information, to now we can cheat and we can have things written down and we don't have to store it all here. And I think that's right. Every technology there are obvious benefits to the written word. So writing, the invention of writing, was obviously beneficial. It changed our society. It was transformative. And it had costs that were less obvious, but the wisdom of Thamus teaches us that, you have to understand, what are you giving up? That's right. I think that's exactly what we have. I would argue it's as transformative maybe as the written word was. It will have amazing and permanent ramifications in what this means for us as a culture and society and race. And it has costs that we have to be aware of. I would much rather be aware of them and working with and around those costs than be have my tinfoil hat and just, try to lobby against it coming, right?
Sure. And I think that is absolutely the perfect place to end our discussion. And it is 100% spot on accurate, right? I think if we look at any progress we have made as a species, as humankind, there has been a loss associated with our gain. And it's navigating that loss, and context matters, right? Okay, so in your example, sure, we lost the village elder who was the source of all knowledge, but we also lost the frailty and fallibility of memory.
Yeah.
Now that we can store it in a more permanent way.
Yep.
And you could argue it's but then we also introduce a little bit of creative editing. So everything, and you said it, so everything, just there's a plus and a minus.
Yeah.
And I believe, as I believe you do, and you said it so well, we have to kind of understand the minuses, embrace the pluses, and move forward, with full awareness of both sides of this.
Yep. The genie's out of the bottle. It's not going back.
It's not going back. Exactly. And, we'll work the ethical problems. We'll work the labor force problems and understand those things and move forward as we always have. I agree. The genie's out of the bottle, and we can't be afraid of it. We have to understand how to take our 3 wishes and use them wisely. Right.
That's right. Yep. Well said.
Awesome. Thank you, Craig. It's been great talking to you. I'll probably sleep better tonight now.
This is fun. I appreciate you having me on, and I love what you guys are doing. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Everyone, thanks for listening. Craig, if people want to learn more, where should they go?
So robotabusiness.com is where you can find Rob, or just look me up on LinkedIn, Craig Key, Key.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Obviously, if you want to learn more about Yellow Pike Media, you can go to yellowpikemedia.com. You can subscribe to our podcasts on Spotify or wherever you like to listen to podcasts. Thanks, everyone. Have a great time. Until next time. Bye-bye.